beautiful day today and I've got my hands on a 2001 Toyota 4Runner. The 2001 Toyota 4Runner. This is widely regarded as one of the most reliable vehicles ever made, and I would have to agree with that sentiment. This is my Toyota 4Runner. It has about 181,000 miles on it, no check engine light, runs like the day I got it, doesn't leak oil, doesn't burn oil. It's a phenomenal vehicle. Let's talk about the looks. This thing was cool looking when it first came out, and I think it's aged very well. That might be because it's my vehicle, but I think it looks good. It's got a high ground clearance. It's got these big fender flares up front. It's got a hood scoop. Covered in snow currently, but it's got a hood scoop up ahead, big fenders in the rear, big tires, small wheels. It looks like a rugged SUV, but unlike a lot of SUVs these days that look like trucks, they look big and tough, but they don't actually have the foundations to back it up. The Toyota 4Runner is actually foundationally a truck. The chassis of the 4Runner is a body-on-frame chassis like a truck, not a unibody chassis like a car. So you can use this thing for off-roading, for construction use, but you sacrifice ride quality, handling, gas mileage, and safety. The engine is a 3.4-liter V6, which produces 183 horsepower and 217 pound-feet of torque. This thing does not have a turbocharger, not a supercharger, super simple. The transmission is a 4-speed automatic as well. This thing has a rear to front 4-wheel drive train like a truck, not a front to rear all-wheel drive train like a small SUV or an economy car. This is more expensive to make, more expensive to buy. It is considered foundationally better for off-roading, construction use. Most of the time, the 4Runner is rear-wheel drive, but you can hit a button and activate the front wheel when you need it. There's also a low range gearbox. There's also locking differentials, so you can hit a button and the rear wheels will turn at exactly the same speed. These are features that most people don't know how to use or know about in general, but they're very good for going off-road, which is why people who love going off-roading, who love heavy-duty trucks, really like the Toyota 4Runner. The rear suspension is a live axle like a truck, not an independent suspension like a luxury vehicle. So again, this thing is geared towards off-roading, construction use, not comfort and handling. The front suspension, on the other hand, is a fully independent suspension like a luxury car, not a live axle like a truck. A lot of SUV manufacturers try to balance out heavy-duty use with passenger comfort, and I think that's what the 4Runner is going for here. Surprisingly, this has the more desirable and more expensive double wishbone front suspension rather than the cheaper McPherson strut, which is kind of odd, but really cool. The more I learn about the 4Runner, the more I like it. In terms of brakes, cars either have drum brakes or disc brakes. Drum brakes last a long time, but they don't perform as well as disc brakes. Disc brakes are the performance standard. The 4Runner has disc brakes up front, but drum brakes in the rear. A lot of truck manufacturers do this. The brakes perform okay. Reliability issues or problems: the rear axle seals can break because of some $2 plastic part which has since been upgraded. Transmission cooler inside of the radiator can corrode, causing coolant to leak into the transmission. This can be fixed by installing an external transmission cooler. But generally, this is considered one of the most reliable vehicles of all time. This thing has 44.6 cubic feet of storage space behind the rear seat and 79.8 cubic feet of storage space with these seats folded down. Coolest thing about this trunk, which does not open and close itself, is when these pneumatic pumps break. These are about $20 to fix. Another really cool thing about the 4Runner, the rear window rolls down. You hit a button and you can roll it down just like your side windows, and that's super helpful when it comes to putting things in. It's also a better system, I think, than these self-opening, self-closing trunks because it's just so much cheaper. It lasts forever. A window regulator is really cheap to fix. Rear seats are comfortable enough to sit in for an adult for long journeys. There's a cup holder, an ashtray, and you can also get a little bit of heat going back here. The front seats are actually comfortable. They're bolstered, they're cloth, they're very simple. The interior looks good. It's like an economy vehicle in here. Everything is very simple and well laid out. There are switches and buttons. There's no touch screen. There's no Bluetooth. There's no rear view camera. There's no parking sensors. But because the stereo is a standard size, I can easily take this thing out, spend $200, get a Pioneer or a Sony head unit from eBay, and then I'll have Bluetooth, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, a rear view camera, GPS, all that stuff. This thing has a low range gearbox, so I can put this thing into neutral, put this thing into low, and that will allow me to go off-roading and get unstuck if I'm stuck in mud. But let's keep that off for now. You mustn't ever use these features when you're driving on the highway, driving on tarmac, because you can destroy your differential. What is this thing like to drive? Well, it's not quiet in here. You can hear the engine, you can hear wind noise. It's by no means a luxury vehicle. It's not unbearable, but it's just not the most comfortable vehicle you've been in. The suspension, you might think, oh, they've got a rear axle or a live axle in the rear and an independent suspension up front. It must be pretty balanced, right? It's not very comfortable in here. You will feel every single bump, and that is because of the combination of the suspension, the chassis. Everything is geared towards heavy-duty off-road use, and because of that, you get a not super comfortable ride. One positive thing I will say about the suspension is, even though we're in a big, tall SUV, I don't feel like the suspension is wallowy. You don't feel like it's out of control. The good bomb-proof reliability, cheap price, cheap to maintain, incredible when it comes to going off-road. It's got all the foundations that you could need. Bad, it's not very comfortable. Gas mileage is, well, it's not bad actually. It's got a V6 engine. The EPA rates this at getting 17 miles per gallon in the city and 20 on the highway. I get 21, 22 on the highway, so I get better than the EPA ratings. But I improve it, I really like this vehicle. There's not much I would improve on it. Maybe an external oil cooler for the transmission to prevent that transmission radiator issue, and maybe upgrading the rear spout for the differential to keep the diffs from leaking, which Toyota has already done. And a 5-speed manual transmission, of course. That's it. I think the value is actually going to increase over time because SUVs these days, they're not necessarily SUVs, they're just tall cars. They have economy car chassis, they have economy car drivetrains. This thing is a beefy, actual throwback, like it's a real truck. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you love cars, and I will see you next time.